When Ivan left Cornwall, he was sad because he left behind his wife and he left behind everything that he knew. He had never stepped beyond Cornwall's borders before, and he walked and he walked and he walked because he needed work. He walked until he crossed the great river Tamar over a bridge and came into the county, the fine county of Devon. And he walked on through the county of Devon until he came past the great city of Exeter and into the countryside somewhere between Exeter and a place called Uffculme. And there he knocked at the door of a farmhouse. "What do you want?" "Well, I want work. I'll do anything as long as you pay me." "Anything," said the farmer. "If you work hard for me for 1 year, at the end of 1 year I will pay you. I will pay you handsomely, I will pay you £3. Well, Ivan was impressed. And he started working for the farmer, and the work was hard. The crops failed that year. There was blight. There was rain. But Ivan did his best to rescue what he could. He worked as hard as he could for the farmer, and at the end of that year he came back to the farmer's front door, knocked at the door and said, "I've come for my £3 so I can go back home to my wife and build a house for the £3. You can have your money, Ivan, or you can have a piece of advice." "I don't know. I came for the money." "What shall I do, Letty? Shall I take the money, or should I ask for some advice?"
Take the money and run.
"The money? Take the money and run? I need to go back to my family, don't I? She thinks I should take the money. Can I take the money?"
Yes. Yes.
Who thinks I should take the money?
Yes.
Most people. Any other reasons why I should take the money? I need it, don't I? How can I go on without it?
It's the one certainty.
Who thinks I should take the advice? Annie, why should I take the advice?
Well, because you never know what it might lead to. It might be a really good piece of advice, like invest in the Icelandic bank.
Sounds like the voice of reason. But my conscience is troubling me. Part of my conscience says I should take the money, part of my conscience says I should take the advice. But most of my conscience says the money, so I will take the money. "Ivan," said the farmer, "I will give you a piece of advice. And the advice is this: never leave the old road to follow the new road." Well, Ivan didn't understand. He had no money, he had no choice. He agreed to work for the farmer another year. And the second year that he worked on that farm was harder than the first. There was a blizzard in the middle of the winter. The roof was swept off the house. And it was Ivan's job, after the blizzard had passed, to rebuild. The livestock needed rescuing, sheltering, nurturing back to health after that terrible winter. And at the end of that year, Ivan returned to the farmhouse. "I've come for my money. Ivan, you can have your money, or you can have another piece of advice." "Oh, that's what you said last year." "What should I do?"
Cut and run.
"Advice?
Ask what the advice is.
Why should I take the advice?"
Beat up the farmer. Ask what the
You'll go home and
advice is.
spend the
I'm
money.
trying to listen to this young lady over here.
You'll go home and spend the money and then you've got nothing. The advice might do you more good in the long term.
Long term. But I need the money now so I can go home to my wife. I'm missing her. I've been away for 2 years. Who thinks I should take the advice? Who thinks I should take the money?
Yeah.
I'll take the money. Ivan, I will give you another piece of advice. And the advice is this: always respect old age. "Oh, I know that. Teach me something new," said Ivan. Ivan continued working on the farm. He had no choice. He couldn't go home empty-handed. He continued working on the farm, and the third year was harder than the first 2 years put together. What happened in that third year?
Flood.
There was a flood. Torrential rain, day after day, 40 days and 40 nights. The crops were drowned, they were swept away, and there was more than a flood.
Foot and mouth.
There were diseases which had never even been heard of then, and some of them were called foot and mouth. And they were terrible. The farm was devastated, but Ivan did his best for the farmer. He worked so hard, and at the end of that year, he came back to the farmhouse and he said to the farmer, "I'm going back to Cornwall whether you pay me or not, but I would that you pay me my £3. And the farmer said, "Ivan, I will give you another piece of advice." And the piece of advice is the most important advice you will ever hear in your life. And the advice is, always be honest. I am honest. I've worked honestly for you for 3 years. You're the one who's dishonest. I'm going tomorrow morning with nothing. And Ivan set off. But he didn't set off empty-handed. But before he left, the farmer caught Ivan and said, "Take this cake. And carry this cake with you. And do not break open this cake until your heart is full of joy." Ivan walked along. He walked past the great city of Exeter, and there he fell in step with a merchant from the same village in Cornwall, a merchant from the small hamlet called Trerin. And they walked along together and they shared stories. The merchant had been trading in Exeter. He had many stories to tell. They walked along until they came to where a path. There was a new path leaving the old path. And the merchant said, "Let us follow the new path. It will surely get us back to Cornwall more quickly." "I don't know," said Ivan. I don't know what to do. What should I do?
Follow the old one.
Ah, he remembered. That conscience coming back. You must follow the old path, said Ivan. "We must follow the old path." But the merchant wouldn't listen. The merchant headed off down the new path, the quicker path. But within moments, Ivan heard a cry, "Stop! Thief! Help! Help!" Ivan ran down the new path, and sure enough, that merchant was being attacked. A robber was on his back with a knife in his hand. Ivan jumped on top of that robber, wrestled him to the ground, got the knife from his hand, but the robber escaped.